Hey, great to have you here. So now that season 3 of Yellowjackets has wrapped up, I figured why not do an overall season review, giving some thoughts as far as how the plot went and some of the character development that we had there. So just want to give a review of my thoughts as a whole for the overall season and give an overall score at the end as well. So the two areas I'm going to focus on are recapping the plot and my thoughts there, and then the characters as well. So starting off with the plot, we begin with the girls in the teenager side of things, have a bit of a game they're playing. It's kind of a fake out scene where Mari's being chased and being attacked, but they're playing a game essentially, and she's being a distraction, which is kind of foreshadowing with what happens at the end of the season. And on the adult side of things, they're pretty much mourning Natalie's death from the prior season, so it's kind of a slow start on that side of things. We have Mari wander off and fall into the coach's pit, and on the adult side of things, we get a Lottie appearance eventually, and she shows up at Shauna's home. We also have a side plot of Ty and Van going to a restaurant for dinner, and they wind up dying and dashing the restaurant and running away. They get chased by some restaurant employee who winds up dying after chasing them. I'm not really sure if the implication there was that Ty killed him. Not really explained at any point after that. But there was definitely a theme of Ty wanting to kill somebody else to keep Van alive, so maybe it's just assumed at that point. And then on the teenager side of things, we have the coach let Mari go, and she repays that by bringing in the wrath of the rest of the team to go there and kidnap him. We also get some super trippy scenes of them in the cave and just seeing a lot of visions of different things that don't really get explained at any point in time. Maybe the assumption there is it is some kind of mysterious effect that's making them have these visions, but doesn't really get explained that much in this season. And then back with the adults, we have a bit of a side plot of Jeff trying to raise his karma levels in the universe by doing good things and donating his time. We then find adult Lottie dead at the bottom of the staircase, which kind of starts the trend of killing off characters. The girls ultimately find the coach guilty of burning down the cabin, but we don't really get an answer as far as who actually burned the cabin down, so that's kind of a mystery going into next season. We then get an episode where most of the adult storyline is spent with Misty, Walter, and Shauna all investigating Lottie's home for clues on how she may have died. And then with the teenagers, we have Natalie finally put the coach out of his misery, and then we're introduced to these two frog scientists and their guide. We have adult Ty and Van really build a relationship throughout the season, with Ty wrestling with that thought of wanting to kill the people to keep Van alive essentially and satisfy the wilderness's urges there. With the teenager storyline, the girls are able to finally leave the wilderness, but they choose not to. Meanwhile, we have adult Shauna confront Melissa for sending that incriminating tape to her home. We then get a lot of chaos that ensues with teenage Lottie killing the male scientists. We have a strange turn of the female scientists killing their guide. We have adult and teenage Shauna go even more insane, and then we have Melissa kill off Van. We wrap things up on the teenager side of things with the girls hunting and killing Mari, while some of the group send Natalie off to try to save them with the radio. And then on the adult side of things, we find out Callie, Shauna's daughter, actually killed Lottie. And we're essentially left with Ty and Misty wanting to plot against Shauna. So throughout the season, we were introduced to some new plot lines that I'm not sure made a whole lot of sense. It just felt a bit disorganized, and there were some moments throughout the season where I kind of lost some interest in the story. We did finally answer some questions in the final episode of the season, but we left the story kind of aimless with the adults, while the teenagers are now hoping to be saved. Now, before taking a look at the characters for the season, as a reminder, if you haven't yet, and if you enjoyed talking about this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it. So with the characters, I'm kind of just going to rattle through my thoughts on their character as a whole throughout the season. Starting with the adult side of things, we have Shauna. So her acting was fine overall, but I really strongly disliked the character throughout the entirety of the season. And honestly, she made watching the show pretty tough at times. Then looking at Ty was fine overall. She's kind of a package deal with Van, I would say. In this season, the delineation between good and evil Ty was a little bit less clear for me. There was times of long stretches where I'm like, okay, she's not acting super strange. She's not like eating mud like the first season we had her doing. So the shifting between the two forms was a little bit less clear. There were situations where she's seeing her son, which is a little more obvious. Then looking at Van was frequently the voice of reason and was a pretty solid character, but her death was super odd to have here. Looking at Misty was probably my favorite adult Yellowjacket this season. She kind of became less manic and more likable this season. I feel like she shifted positively, while Shauna kind of took her place as being the crazy one amongst the group. Then looking at Lottie, so she didn't join this season until like a couple episodes in. She was mostly inconsequential, I would say, outside of a couple scenes with Callie and Misty. Then looking at Melissa, she was kind of a late addition. I think episode 8 is when she joined the cast here. She seemed pretty level-headed until she wound up killing Van. And I'm still not really sure why you would include an actress who's as prominent as Hilary Swank if you're only going to give her a couple episodes. Felt a little strange. Maybe we were hoping for more in season 4, but not really sure why they went with that approach. Then looking at Jeff, Shauna's husband, he was pretty irrelevant to the plot this season. He mostly served as a comedic relief, sporadically thrown in throughout the show. We'd have a really dark scene, then we cut to Jeff cutting jokes with people and being kind of the lightheartedness. So I enjoy him as a character, but it felt like he didn't really have a purpose, and we just kind of threw him in there to be like, haha, Jeff, he's fun, right? And Callie was pretty much just alongside Jeff for most of the season until she turned into a mini Shauna when we found out that she killed Lottie. And then finally looking at Walter was a character I was pretty disappointed by. I love Elijah Wood as an actor. He's awesome and a lot of stuff I really enjoy. But I didn't feel like his character added much to the plot. I kept hoping for him to be more relevant to the storyline, but he was just kind of a side character throughout the entirety of the season. Maybe there's a little bit more for season 4, but it seemed a bit strange that while not as intensely similar to Hilary Swank, he wound up being kind of sidelined compared to some of the other characters. Then looking at the teenager storyline, so Shauna there, similar to her adult counterpart, teenage Shauna was pretty unpleasant to have on screen, which once again is tied to the character writing, not the acting. Then looking at Ty seemed kind of all over the place. There were some times where she was pretty level-headed, like wanting Van to do that trick with the card when they were drawing cards. But then we had her also not want to go home. So she felt like she was kind of balancing too much going on. Maybe that's the good and evil Ty of her, but it felt like she was a little bit inconsistent with her character arc. Van, there's not much to say there. She was similar to her adult version in that she was frequently the voice of reason throughout the season. Then with Misty, once again, teenage Misty was also more likable this season. She was having a lot less crazy antics throughout the season. Lottie, not much to say there. She was just kind of out there, being her typical, let's all believe in this mystical entity self. Melissa was fine, I guess. I feel like she was a new introduction as far as a prominent character for the season, which I do think is a problem when we suddenly have some characters who are pretty much sidelined suddenly become more main characters. It feels like we're kind of just killing people off, so we're like, oh, now that this person's gone, we need someone else to slide in as a relevant character. So a little bit odd there, but it worked, I guess. Natalie was definitely my favorite teenage character. She was smart, down to earth, and I thought Sophie Thatcher really nailed the role here. Looking at the coach, I really liked him, but they did him pretty dirty in the season. They really dragged out his death way too long, in my opinion. And then we have the newcomers. We have Hannah, Edwin, and Cody. This crew I don't feel like added a lot to the story. Initially, I really liked their inclusion. Then we quickly killed off Edwin, and then Cody shortly thereafter. And once again, similar to Hilary Swank, I don't really get why we had Joel McHale as kind of a prominent actor in this role for just a few episodes. And then some of the others like Akilah, Mari, Travis, and Jen, I thought they were fine. Akilah got a lot more screen time here. Same with Mari. Travis was pretty insignificant as a character. And then we would get other randomly inserted background characters like Jen, which once again felt a little bit odd since they were largely ignored in prior seasons. So that kind of sums up my thoughts as far as the plot and the characters go. For a rating here, I was a bit torn between doing either a 3 or 4. And as a reminder, below 5 is below average for me. So 5 is average. So 5 is decent, I would say, overall. So for this one, I'm going to wind up going with a 3 out of 10. They may sound a bit harsh, but I want to be genuine with you since I found it to be a below average TV show season. I do hope it gets renewed for another season since I want to find out where the story goes. However, if they drag things out a little bit too long, they're going to run into the Stranger Things problem where we have these actors playing teenagers as full adults. And I'll say if I'm looking at season 3 compared to the entire series of Yellowjackets. So season 1 I really enjoyed. The plot there was awesome. I'm not sure it was something they really could have dragged out too much further, but obviously we want to make a series out of this thing. Season 2 I feel like had a bit of a drop off from there, and honestly I think that continued again for season 3. But let me know what you thought. Were you more of a fan of this season? What parts did you like or dislike? Sound off on all things Yellowjackets in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.